I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. You know, more and more the global economy relies on magical thinking. All of the models have failed, all the policies have failed, and now we've got magical thinking. Stacy, tell us more about this.
Max, it's magic 8-ball economics ruling the world. And I thought this first headline here would very much interest you: an investment fund that makes trades based on superstitious beliefs. The Superstitious Fund project is an investment fund that is run by a superstitious autonomous algorithm. As a one-year experiment, it operates and trades purely on superstitious beliefs, buying or selling on numerology and in accordance to lunar phases. For example, it has the fear of the number 13 and a full moon. It also develops its own lucky and unlucky values, just as we do all the time. We are hardwired to imagine patterns that give us the illusion of control.
Right, so this is a computer program. It's artificial intelligence, basically, to go in there and make trades based on superstition. Now, what's significant about this is that you've got, of course, artificial intelligence, but this is now an example of artificial superstition. This is part of going backwards to medieval days. Under medievalism, superstition ruled, pre-Enlightenment. Also, pre-Enlightenment medieval justice system ruled, and also the lord and serf relationship ruled. And as this global economy goes back to medieval days, back to lord and serf, back to pre-Enlightenment, it would make sense that you'd have artificial superstition running a portfolio of stocks to take advantage of going backwards into medieval days as the prevailing model ruling global political and economic forces.
Yeah, I mean, this is an experiment. It's only £5,000 investing in the FTSE via spread betting. So, however, I think it will be a good, interesting result to see how our magical thinking, our beliefs, our superstitions do impact the economy and the financial system, whether it's we have magical faith and belief in the powers of central banks to save us, that we have magical beliefs that banks know what they're talking about when they give you an analysis of various companies or sectors.
Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa.
Magical belief, pre-Enlightenment, was the established common wisdom, the accepted wisdom. And then guys like Denis Diderot showed up and created something called the Encyclopedia. And it put all that knowledge into the hands of the common person. And this was the first chink in the armor that was the establishment church in Europe that monopolized all of the information, monopolized all the wealth, and put forward this model of lord and serf. Now they want to go back to that using artificial superstition intelligence bots to go in there and trade based on this emergence of a new serf class, a global peasant class, that they can then rake again more money into their own pockets because they want to get rid of all common intelligence sources.
But they don't even need to set up this experiment. They could just look at the main headlines at the big banks and at the mainstream economists. Because check out this headline, Max. Citi sees 90% chance of Greece leaving the euro. The chances of Greece leaving the euro in the next 12 to 18 months have risen to about 90%, U.S. bank Citi said in a report on Thursday. Citi economists had previously put the chances of a Greek exit at 50 to 75%.
Right, they use a magic 8-ball.
Yeah.
Anyone who works on Wall Street knows that any of the analysis that comes out of these banks is flawed, it's corrupt, it's rigged. 90% of all the institutional research published every single year is dead wrong, as is this, completely and utterly dead wrong. They use this research as a way to circulate bribe money because people buy the research in exchange for trading that's done for cash.
So good.
That's a research for cash scandal, which has yet to fully surface of all the scandals that, even though we've seen many, there are many more yet to fully surface.
There's either a 0% or a 100% chance that Greece is going to leave the euro. There's no 75 and now it's 50% and now it's 90%. They're just making up numbers, telling some clients, and the clients say, buy, sell, based on these numbers that they just pull out magically from thin air.
Expelliarmus! Superstitious! Rictus Emperor! Seven Sortia!
Volate ascendere! Well, right, but those numbers that they pull magically out of thin air are the collateral that backs derivatives. The derivatives, we know definitively, are backed by magical thinking. They themselves are algorithmic bots that are referencing each other, and now it's going to be informed by magical thinking. Magical thinking informs the LIBOR rate. Magical thinking informs the Nielsen rating system we now know is completely rigged. It's another rigged market as part of the trifecta of fraud. Media, Wall Street, and Washington. They're all rigged. They're rigged together.
Lumos Maxima!
3.
Ridiculous! Ridiculous!
Ridiculous!
Ridiculous!
And now another magical headline, this time from a chief economist. A dose of inflation could start to look like a cure for our current ills. This is an editorial from Roger Bootle of Capital Economics, and he says a serious policy of trying to reduce the debt burden through inflation lies as an option in the future. Interestingly, a list of the economists who have supported it reads like a roll call of the top names in global macroeconomics. What the protagonists have in mind is that the government would raise its inflation target, say, to 4% to 5%, and the bank would then be obliged to launch a massive program of quantitative easing to increase inflation.
They've been trying to increase inflation for 5 years.
Exactly.
They could increase the inflation target to 100%. The GDP of the globe could go from 50 trillion to 100 trillion. But it would still be deflation as opposed to the 700 trillion in debt and derivatives that are off balance sheet or partially on balance sheet. They could increase inflation by 300%, by 400%. It's still not going to overcome the deflationary forces of this unwinding derivatives mess that hit the iceberg back in 2007. They would love inflation. They would love to try to create inflation, but they're incapable of doing so because no amount of money printing. They would literally have to print $400 to $500 trillion in new fiat money to inflate the debt away. Now, that's probably not going to happen, and as a result, the fiat currency system continues to unwind, and we're still on the suicide watch for BNP, Societe Generale, HSBC, Barclays, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. They're all on suicide watch. It's only a matter of days or weeks before another major catastrophe hits.
Speaking of major catastrophe, there's always the man behind the curtain, and it's important for all these magical beliefs and magic thinking that you don't understand who the powers that be are.
And I believe my eyes. Why have you come back?
Please, sir, we've done what you told us. We brought you the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. We melted her.
Ah, you liquidated her, eh? Very resourceful.
Yes, sir. So we'd like you to keep your promise to us, if you please, sir.
Not so fast. Not so fast. I'll have to give the matter a little thought. Go away and come back tomorrow.
Headline reads, 4% of Americans think Jamie Dimon is prepping his bike to jump the 526 feet between the top of JP Morgan headquarters and the roof of the old Bear Stearns building. In spite of JP Morgan Chase's well-publicized loss of more than $5 billion, just 14% of Americans polled correctly identified CEO Jamie Dimon as a New York banker. 66% said they don't know who he is, while 4% believe he's a daredevil motorcyclist.
Well, no, this makes sense. I mean, a lot of people ask me, gee, you know, you attacked Jamie Dimon so vociferously. Aren't you afraid that his goons are going to attack you? And the answer is no, because 66% of Americans have never heard of Jamie Dimon, and 90% only have a vague idea of who Jamie Dimon is. If, in fact, 66% of Americans knew explicitly who Jamie Dimon was and the crimes that he commits on a daily basis to disenfranchise 98% of all Americans, then, yeah, you could say, well, having made that happen, I might be at risk of being beat up by Jamie's goons. But as long as America engages in cognitive dissonance, and as long as it pretends as if magical thinking is going to somehow save them from the ravages of the deflationary global derivatives unwind that is pummeling unmercifully daily, then we're safe.
You know, during the previous Great Depression, people knew who Al Capone was. And here, nobody even knows who Jamie Dimon is. The difference, of course, between Al Capone and Jamie Dimon is that Jamie Dimon sells you the American dream with one hand, and the other hand, he's just ripping you off. So you see this sort of misdirection in this headline, HSBC to set aside £600 million to cover mis-selling and money laundering scandals. HSBC is set to make a new provision for payment protection insurance mis-selling of as much as £300 million, as well as putting aside about £200 million to compensate small business customers mis-sold complex interest rate derivatives, and they're also likely to make an initial $200 million provision against costs related to failings in its U.S. business in relation to money laundering. You notice that it's just, oops, it was a little failing. It wasn't a crime.
Like mis-selling. You know, another euphemism for theft. You know, if I'm trying to sell a guy who runs a liquor store on the idea of giving me all of his money, and I use a bottle cracked over his skull, and I crack open his skull, and then I steal all of his money, my defense when I go in front of the judge will be I missold the concept of him giving me his money. It's a mis-selling problem. I missold him on the idea. And this is exactly what HSB is saying. They're involved in money laundering for terrorists. 9/11 terrorists got their money directly from HSBC. We now know it. Their defense is, well, we missold them on the idea that they shouldn't take the money, get planes, and kill a bunch of people in the Twin Towers. It's a mis-selling problem. You know, they are involved in laundering money for drug cartels, Mexican drug cartels. So they missold them on the idea that the taking $400 or $500 billion of drug cartel money and washing it through our bank, it was actually a mis-selling problem, and we just got to pay a little bit of a fine. Sorry, man. You know, we won't let that happen again, except, of course, we will.
But these magic tricks can only happen with the participation of the audience. And as you see here, these small businesses were sold credit default swaps and credit, interest rate swaps, on the belief that bankers have this magical ability to remove all risk from capitalism for you.
Well, people want something for nothing. And when someone from HSBC shows up and promises them something for nothing, they buy it, hook, line, and sinker. It's been there for, since the beginning of Wall Street. And this is happening now. And until there's a new FDR who comes in with a new Pecora Commission and brings in Glass-Steagall and FDIC and other things, then these people continue to have their money stolen. Look at Facebook. I mean, we talked to you before the Facebook went public. We said, it's a bomb. It's a stinker. Don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's going to be down 50% within 6 months. I virtually guarantee it. But people bought it anyway because they're on Facebook. It's a digital narcissism. Because they're on Facebook and they're like, well, I can buy into myself, playing with myself, with my other selves, who are exactly like me, on myself in my digital narcissistic magic mirror. And I can own part of this? Well, I want to own it at $38 a share. Oops, I'm down 50% in the 6 months. Gosh, I guess I'm an idiot.
Also exposed since then is that Facebook is just littered with bots. People actually are friends with Max Keiser on Facebook, who is a fake Max Keiser, and the guy talks to the viewers of this program as if he's you. So this is like the whole world we're living in, this superstitious, magical freak world.
It's artificial superstition. On Facebook, people who buy advertising on Facebook are buying into the artificially superstitious notion that people are clicking on your ads who have an intention to buy your stuff when it's actually just bots clicking on themselves. 80%. So the valuation is not even $50 or $52 billion for Facebook. This company shouldn't be valued at more than maybe $1 or $2 billion. Ultimately, it will be bought by a Unilever or a Coca-Cola who will use it for a marketing machine to sell more junk. Stacey Herbert, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you.
Don't go away, much more coming away. Stay right there.